Now, this is the AM show coming to you live from Fana Fastrico Community. My name is Israel Lai. It's a brand new week, all right, but the issues from the 2022 budget are still dominating discussions, particularly the 1.75% levy government wants to impose on all electronic money transactions in what have become known as the Momo tax. Government believes this is the one way to widen the tax nets and ensure almost everyone contributes their share of taxes needed for the development of the country. But it's clear there needs to be some fine-tuning and clarity as to how the levy will be applied. Joining me for this conversation this morning is Sam George, MP for Ningo Pram Pram. He's in the studio with us. Good morning to you, Sam George. Sure. And then we'd also have some other guests who are going to be joining us in a bit, particularly the Economic Writers League, who are part of the Fix the Country movement, and they're saying that they're kicking against the levy. And so there's going to be a demonstration coming up on Friday. But ahead of the demonstration, they're holding a news conference today. We'll get to hear from them exactly what their position is on the E-levy and why they want to embark on a demonstration over that. But I want to start with you, Sam George. The minority says it's going to kick against the bill. But we've heard the finance minister who's saying that, look, this is a tax that is necessary. I'd want us to actually listen or hear from the finance minister what he had to say over the weekend, and then we'll come into the conversation. So let's hear from the finance minister.
So this historic 10 billion intervention that we have had and finding ways for burden sharing. So we recognize the problems of youth unemployment, the problem of growth, the problem of debt, and we as a nation decide to burden share to break this intractable problem. So it's very exciting seeing the support that he has garnered and seeing some of the entrepreneurs here who are here. And it gives me hope that where we are going with the E-levy is the right way to do that.
It's interesting that you mentioned the E-levy. There are already concerns out there that
the
E-levy amounts to double taxation and inimical to entrepreneurship. That
well, if you look at your 2.2 million youth in 1960 to 10.8 million youth, it cannot be that we do things as we do them always. And I think we all need to stretch our minds as to what we want to curtail. The indignity of not having a job, I think, should really manage how the world economy is moving into more of an E-line economy. The old tax handles might not be different. And as you bring these things on, you tweak them with time. But the clarity of understanding that we cannot continue to have this youth problem. We cannot continue to not have our roads built. We cannot continue to not look at our debt. I think it's in front of us. And usually a change, brings these things. But I think the change should be how do we make this efficient and move forward. But in terms of everybody not liking taxes, always will be that. So we have, maybe a month of discussions of Parliament. But once the objective is clear, we'll get to some efficiency. And I really want the youth to go behind us to say that, let's talk for jobs.
You talked about discussions with Parliament. I've been speaking to the minority leader, and he describes it as opportunistic and defeatist, and says that the minority is not going to cooperate with when it comes to this particular E-levy. I don't know what your response is to this.
Well, Biden went through his 1.3 trillion. There were discussions, but in the end, where does Ghana, the Republic, want to go? And so we'll discuss. But as long as we are clear on eliminating this unemployment benefit, I think we'll find a way to cooperate and build the nation and move forward. So it's not an unfamiliar position with opposition, but I'm sure we all have the good sense of one language, the Republic in hand, and we'll get there as one people.
Right, so that was Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, and in the studio with me, as I indicated earlier, I have Sam George, MP for Ningo Pram Pram, and good morning to you once again. Now, this conversation, you're very well placed. I think you're one of the best placed people from the minority to speak to it because you understand the technicalities involved. Why is the minority opposed to the E-levy?
Well, let me say good morning to you and to our viewers and to the good people of Mingo Pram Pram. This E-levy is at best a taxation Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme that is targeted at maximizing profit at the detriment of people who put their money in. And I'll just give you the statistics. Government is looking to raise between 7 and 8 billion from the E-levy, largely on the back of Momo transactions. The total amount of money on float in the country in 2020, which is the real cash that people have put into the mobile money ecosystem, is 8 billion. Government is looking at the total value of transactions, which is 571.9 billion, and saying we're going to make 8 billion out of it. But what they fail to realize is the real cash in there is 8 billion. So in 1 year, government is basically going to take out all the cash in the ecosystem. Because you see...
How did you come by the 8 billion being the real cash?
Oh, that's figures from the Bank of Ghana. The banks actually, the mobile, the mobile money business is not regulated by the NC and the Ministry of Communication. It's regulated by the Bank of Ghana.
Yes.
And so the companies are meant to keep cash in float by the law Parliament passed. And that's the fiscal cash. It's domiciled with the Bank of Ghana. It's held on float. We call it cash on float. It's 8 billion. It's 8 billion. You can check from the Bank of Ghana.
Okay, so
basically what they're doing...
It may be cash on float.
Yes.
But if we're understand that the 570 billion that's moving, it's money that's actually moving around.
No, it's 8 billion moving around in multiples. Because what happens is I load 10,000 CDs onto the ecosystem. Now, when I load that 10,000 CDs, when you're looking at the total value of transactions, it records as 10,000. I move 5,000 out of that 10,000 to you. It records it as plus 5,000. So now in the ecosystem, it sees value of transaction at 15,000. But real cash that's there is still 10,000.
Okay, so I understand the multiplier bit of the transactions.
Yes.
As in 10,000, you move 10,000 maybe 10 times.
It becomes, the system will record it as 100,000.
Yes.
But it is 10,000 in the system.
But I'd still need to get the cash float where you're saying that it's 8 billion.
Yes, and the Bank of Ghana reports, I think, quarterly on mobile money. And that's how we got the 571 billion total value of transactions. In that same report, they state that the fiscal cash is 8 billion.
Okay.
You get it. So it's on the basis of that we're doing this extrapolation. So I'm saying to you that a taxation that takes out the real value of the money in 1 year is going to collapse the mobile money industry. Because if you're taking that out, you're basically taking out the capital of the business. Because, look, you have a corporate governance system that is against double taxation. And that's why corporate entities that pay taxes in other regimes, once they're able to show that to our local tax authorities, are exempted from some of those taxes. Because, I mean, international practice is against double taxation. Now, what you have our government do is not just do double taxation, but multiple layers of taxation. So the same 10,000, I'm using that same 10,000 example. I got paid 10,000 because I work for Multimedia. Multimedia, in transferring that 10,000 to me, pays a 1.75 E-levy because they did a bank transfer.
Okay, so there's been some clarity to the effect that the bank transfer, this kind of bank transfer that you're talking about, is exempted.
Who is giving you that clarity?
We got that from the Deputy Minister, that's John Kuma.
Well, again, therein lies the policy incoherence. The other Deputy Minister, Charles Edu Boahen, has made it clear that that is taxed. And when you read what the minister presented in the budget statement, I would want to say that my colleague John Kuma was wrong.
Could we also say that, well, government is still in the process of fine-tuning it, which is the issue the point I was making earlier. Government is still fine-tuning it. It's when we have the law eventually passed that we're going to get to know the details.
But Israel, shouldn't you be worried that government has come to announce a policy initiative of this kind in the budget without thinking it through? Look, and maybe I even jumped my presentation too far. The E-levy has 3 components. 1.75 on mobile money transactions, all mobile money transactions. 1.75 on all financial bank transactions. And then 1.75 on all inward remittances. Good. Now, when you pick this when you take these three sectors and you look at it, on the Momo tax, for example, which is the mobile money transactions, I'm asking myself, the Ministry of Communications and the NCA on Friday invited the stakeholders, and critical questions were asked of the ministry. They had no answer. The NCA had no answer. So government has introduced a levy in our budget, which is supposed to kick in on the 1st of January. And you expect me as a member of parliament to approve that budget, approve the policy, approve the estimates, and approve appropriations. There are 3 steps in the budget approval cycle for a policy that government doesn't understand. A policy that is that's why we as a minority, we won't approve this. Because we pay you as our Ministry of Finance to understand the tax policy initiatives. If you don't understand the policy, and that's why I would make a categoric statement here. Next year, bring me to your studio on today's what? Today's 22nd. Bring me 22nd of November 2022, God sparing our lives. And by then, we would have had the budget read. And I'm putting it to you that they would not raise the amounts that they claim they will raise. There will be a revenue shortfall on this tax, even if they're able to push it through. Because, you see, because they haven't thought through it, because they're looking at the total value of transactions, because they're failing to understand the effect of such a tax. I'll give you a typical example. In Uganda, it affected revenues, Momo revenues, and Momo transactions by 80%.
What was the percentage they came up with in Uganda?
In Uganda, I need to check exactly what percentage they charged.
But it was a lot more, I mean, much more than the 1.75% that we're looking at.
But again, in Uganda, you need to ask yourself, what was the strength of the market? How long had the market run? Look, mobile money markets...
That's also another issue.
Yes, mobile money, and I've heard persons from the finance ministry saying that Ghana's business, mobile money business, is deeper than those economies. That's a blatant lie. Mobile money came to Ghana from Kenya. M-Pesa was the first mobile money trading ever. Kenya had been running M-Pesa. M-Pesa is worth more than it is here, than mobile money is here in Ghana. Yet in Kenya, when they introduced it, they saw a 43% dip in transaction values and use. The governments have had to reverse the policy after 2 years. Go to Spain. Spain introduced the digital tax. In 1 year, in 2019, it cost the Spanish digital economy 592 billion euros. That's the effect. So it's not an African thing. Okay? Now, the point we're making here is this. You cannot, first and foremost, the telcos asked the ministry and the NCA, you want us to implement this on the 1st of January. But you're saying I should exempt persons who do not do transactions less than 100 Ghana cedis. Now, you don't have an interconnect clearing house of sorts for mobile money. It exists for the banks. So if I go with my ATM to an Absa Bank ATM and withdraw 2,000 from my 3,000, if I move within 5 minutes or even a minute to a Zenith Bank ATM, the ATM, even though it's different banks, will not allow me to withdraw that 2,000 again because there's a connected system that they run. Mobile money doesn't run that way. So if you are saying...
What about the mobile money interoperability?
Interoperability allows you to transfer money and receive money across platforms. However, it does not share a common operating platform that allows them to see balances of individuals. So this is the question. I have 100 Ghana cedi maximum threshold, but I have 3 lines. And don't forget, even with your SIM registration, you're allowing me to have up to 10 SIM cards. So on Vodafone, I do 40 Ghana cedis to my mother. Then I go to Momo, Airtel Tigo, and do another 40 Ghana cedis to my father. I've done 80 cedis in the day.
Yeah.
Now I go on MTN, and I want to buy data bundle of 100 Ghana cedis. That will cross me beyond the 100 Ghana cedi a day threshold.
Yes.
However, MTN is unable to tell what other transactions I have done on my Airtel money or on my Vodafone money.
Well, that's
so you realize how this policy is set up to fail. And I'm doing this to teach people how to beat this flawed policy. Because you can do 99 CD, 99 CD, 99 CD on 3 different networks.
No, but that's to the benefit of the consumer, which is fine. It is fine.
And there are several other ways to beat the system.
And
because it's not a properly thought through system.
Okay, so yes, but so are you then saying that if government thinks through this whole policy, comes up with some changes and modifications, you find it acceptable?
No. Because you see, for me, this is a lazy approach to taxation. And I'm not going to sit here. I was fortunate to work with seniors in this industry and in my party on the NDC's IT, the telecoms part of our manifesto. And in those meetings, clearly there was a thought about looking at the growing digital economy and imposing some kind of tax measure in there. We could have gone this route. We chose not to in our manifesto. Never. Because for us, we know, look, and I keep saying that this IT journey started under President Kufuor in 2004 with his GH for ICTD, Ghana for ICT Development Policy, 2004. That's the first time Ghana had an ICT policy under President Kufuor. President Mills came in 2008. And then we picked that policy, reviewed it, and started implementation of it. By 2012, when John Mahama took over, between 2013 and 2016, we invested about $350 million to build a backbone that today, Mr. Digitalization, everything he says he's doing is running on the back of John Mahama's $350 billion.
Which backbone? What exactly was done?
So all the fiber, basically fiber infrastructure you have in Ghana, your Eastern Corridor fiber, almost 800 kilometers of fiber built by John Mahama, your National Data Center built by John Mahama, your business process outsourcing centers built by John Mahama, your Accra Metro fiber, Tema Metro fiber, all built by John Mahama. You understand me? So that's what I'm saying, that all of this so-called digital inclusion that we are having was built by, is running on an infrastructure. I mean, anybody who understands IT knows that it doesn't happen in space. There's a backbone that drives it. That backbone was built by John Mahama. I'm just giving you the drivers. I mean, our LTE base stations, about 120 of them, and all of that. Now, all of these base stations and all of this infrastructure has been put in. You claim you're doing digitization, but the question we'll ask ourselves is, and what we asked ourselves was, even 4 years ago, Israel, you go to a shop, big shops, big departmental stores, and they were refusing to accept mobile money payments. You go to Makola and many of your markets, and the women refuse to accept mobile money payments.
But all that has changed now.
It's changed. It's taking us almost 14 years to get people to accept mobile money. Mobile money has been in operation since 2009. Okay, so we're talking about 12 years. It's taken us 12 years to finally get people to begin to accept. Just when they start accepting it, you're bringing in blockers to their use of this. Because now, you see, people sit back and say, okay, if I take mobile cash and I want to go and cash out, or the person transfers to me and I need to transfer to another person, I'm beginning to lose 1.75 of what will be my profit. That is an inhibitive factor. And so where's the NDC? Our policy or thinking was that you need to empower the drivers of the economy. And so we thought, and we believe, and still believe, that there should be no charges on mobile money transactions across. Even the 1% that is charged by the service provider must be scrapped. Not the introduction of another 1.75.
Which we're yet to get clarity as to whether the 1.75 is going to be slapped on.
There's clarity on that.
In addition to the 1%.
It is in addition. There's clarity on that matter. So now the charges are 2.75. And that again leads to a change of business model, which I'll come to. But on the clarity of what we as the NDC would have as an alternative is that you should rather be looking to tax the digital economy itself and not the enablers of the digital economy. There are people who are running digital businesses. They're making profit of the digital economy. Now, those are corporate entities. Those are the people you must begin to target.
Which ones specifically would you say?
So take for example, I offer or I sell clothes online. People come online to my online platform through Instagram, Facebook, and then they place an order, and then I deliver the food to them. There's Jumia. There's the big online stores. Okay.
Apart from the big online stores,
and even the smaller ones. Yes, like I gave you the clothes. I sell clothes. Someone's selling groceries. Someone is selling food and all of those things. Fantastic. Those are the drivers you need. Those are the players in the digital economy who you need to introduce a digital corporate tax on, because they make revenue off the economy, of the digital economy. You tax their revenue as you are taxing the revenue of a regular business that has a shop front that GRA goes to and collects money from. So it is those beneficiaries of the digital economy that you place a tax on. You don't place a tax on those who are empowering the digital economy, because when you then do that, what you do is you make them withdraw from the digital economy and go back to a cash economy. And in doing that, you are killing the digital economy. But you see, if you had imposed that digital corporate tax, it's a harder way to go. It's more difficult to implement. And that's why this government is lazy and decided to go for the easy way out and tax basically kill the hen that's laying the golden eggs. But you see, if you had created a platform where you take off all charges for those populating the digital economy, it's free money. It's not free money. It's free for me to put money in the digital economy. I don't get taxed for it. I don't pay for it. But then the guy who is doing business on the digital economy gets to pay a corporate tax. That is a more acceptable way to go about it. Now, even on the financial levy sector one again, you know, and quickly before I go there, on the Momo one, the last thing I saw on the Momo one is when you look at I said it's changing people's business models. There are three players in the e-money space, major players: Vodafone Cash, Airtel Tigo Money, and MTN. Airtel Tigo Money and Vodafone Cash realized that they have a challenge with numbers. MTN Momo seems to have lion's share of the economy. So what do? They build a business model to make them sustainable. That business model means that when I transfer money on net, which means from Vodafone to Vodafone, or from Airtel to Airtel, it is free. Even if I'm doing 100,000 Ghana cedis, it's free. No charges. Now, MTN does a charge with a cap of 10 Ghana cedis. So if I send 10,000 cedis on MTN, my service charge capped at 10 Ghana cedis. With the onset of COVID, MTN introduced the 100 CD threshold. So when they say there's a 100 CD grace that they've given, it is not them. It exists already in the market. There is no payments for any transactions under 100 Ghana CD. Now, you are introducing this 1.75. So it means Airtel Tigo and Vodafone Cash, who have built their mobile money business on the model of free on-net transactions, will now have to charge your 1.75 even on net transactions, which is inhibitive to their business model. So we are actually been killing the giant players in that industry. Now, when you go to the bank transactions, I've heard people say, "Oh, but the NDC should shut up." Why should the NDC shut up? Oh, you introduced 17.5 financial services tax. So how dare you talk about 1.75? Now, let's be clear. There's a difference between the two taxes. The NDC's 17.5% financial services tax, which was criticized by the MPP, was not a tax on the value of transaction. It was a tax on the charges of the bank providing the service. It was a service charge. So I'll break it down for you. If you were transferring 100,000 Ghana cedi from St. George to Israel, and my bank charged me 1% of the value of that transaction for doing that transaction, it then meant that 1% of 100,000 is 1,000 Ghana cedis. Now, the NDC's tax was 17.5% of that 1,000, which will come to 17 cedi 50 pesos. Now, the Baumia tax on the same 100,000 is 17.5%.
The E-levy.
But he's the digitization man. So if it's the digital levy, you take the assets and liabilities. When it is 17.5% of the value of the transaction, now 1.75 of the value of transaction, 1.75% of 100,000 transaction I'm doing to you now is 1,750. So under the NDC, with its financial 17.5 financial service charge, if I transferred 100,000 to you, I paid 17 cedi 50 pesos under the Nanado Baumia Kenoforiata tax. When you transfer the same 100,000, instead of paying 17 cedi 50 pesos, you are paying 1,750. How can this be the same? And then inward remittances.
Yeah. But also, so clearly, would you appreciate it, as I asked you before, if government comes back and says, okay, we're doing some fine-tuning and we're deciding that we're going to, bring down the charges, maybe instead of charging the 1.75% on the amount of money transferred, we're going to do maybe 1.75 on the charges, the bank charges, for instance. Would you find that more acceptable?
Well, we should bear in mind already that even with Momo and I think bank charges, there's already a CST tax element in there already.
That's true.
Government already has a CST tax element in there. So when you are introducing this new E-levy, how different, if you want to now make it on the service charge and not on the value of the money, which is what you're suggesting, which would have been, it's still a lazy approach, but would have been a more considerate approach, you are going to ask yourself, what happens to the CST? Are we making the digital economy another fuel, petrol taxation scheme, right, where, you know, every government just comes in and says, oh, petrol is being over-levied. When they come, they just change the nomenclature and increase the taxes on petrol.
Let me bring in one other person who we've invited to the conversation. Collins Aduma-Mensah is MP for Efija Kwabre North. And then we have Ni Ayu of Paris, the national spokesperson for the Economic Fighters League. But I would want to start with you, Collins Aduma-Mensah. Good morning and thank you for joining us for the conversation. Hello, good morning, Collins.
Yeah, good morning.
All right. So I'm sure you've heard your colleague, MP for Ningo Pram Sam George, and he's been going on and on about why the minority is going to kick against this E-levy. What's your take on all of that?
Well, good morning to yourself again, and good morning to your viewers and to my very good brother, Sam George. I don't actually remember a time when the NDC or the opposition accepted every detail of a budget after it had been read. So I'm not surprised that the NDC, from the onset, is giving indications that they will have challenges with this particular tax.
Except in this case, they've put out some very fine arguments why they think that this E-levy must be looked at again.
Hello, come again.
I'm saying, except in this instance, they are not just, they're kicking against it, but they've put forward some fine arguments why government would have to look at it again.
And that is why I'm happy about the fact that what government did, what the minister did last week, was the government's proposal.
All right.
And as George is aware, we'll be going into a debate from Tuesday, and then subsequently we'll be breaking into our various committees to analyze and in detail the specifics as regards each ministry. For me personally, I have a few issues with the levy.
All right.
I accept the idea of broadening the tax net, which is something that this particular levy seeks to do. I perfectly get the principle. I think what is left now is for government to explain in detail the mechanics as to how this particular levy is going to be implemented. And I'm sure during the discussion stage, all this will come up. I've had some previous discussions, side discussions with my very good brother, Sam George, and he brought a very fantastic suggestion. And indeed, right after speaking to him, I've had cause to speak to a few of my colleagues. People have challenges with how government utilize money that is given to them. Some have suggested that why don't we create a fund which will be reporting back to Parliament on a quarterly basis to make it clear that Ghanaians become very comfortable as to how the money is being used. These are all suggestions that have come from my good friend George and other people who I've spoken to. And I think as we go into the discussions, the details of it will be made very clear to everybody. But for me, I support 100% the idea of broadening the tax net, which is what this particular E-levy seeks to do.
All right, thanks for your initial thoughts. And I'll be coming to you, but we also have the Economic Fighters League there with the Fix the Country movement, and they are saying that they also oppose to it. They're looking at having a demonstration on Friday. Good morning to you. I want to find out from you why this demonstration against the E-levy.
All right. Greetings to your viewers out there, to the Honourable Minister and then a Member of Parliament, Sam George, and to Ghanaians out there, the youth of Ghana. Our frustration is not just with this E-levy, but with the entire budget, the 2022 budget. And we of the Economic Fighters League, and indeed as co-conveners of the Fix the Country movement, we are speaking on behalf of the masses of Ghanaians. And if you listen carefully to the budget, there's really nothing in it that speaks to the socioeconomic conditions of the people. It's nothing more than empty promises that we listen to. And I wish we would get to the point where we begin to measure the success of successive governments based on their yearly budget reports. Because indeed, the budget is a document where, like my senior colleague just said, it's a proposal that the government puts before the people of Ghana and say, we want you to acknowledge and approve this amount of money for us because these are the activities or projects we want to embark on, or the policies that we want to embark on, with the promise that these policies that they are introducing would bring about better living standards for the people, or better living conditions. But year in, year out, we have the budgets approved. They end up spending even more than they ask for in Parliament, but we do not see any tangible effect on the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian. So our challenges or our frustration is not just with the E-levy. Indeed, that is very insensitive. It's coming at a time when Ghanaians have been hit very hard by the whole COVID pandemic. People have lost their jobs. Unemployment is on the rise. And we're expecting the government to issue or bring out policies that will help to alleviate the suffering of the people. But to slap extra taxes on, in fact, this government is throwing about taxes as if it was confectionaries for the holiday season. But we were hoping that policies would have come to make life a little bearable and easy for the Ghanaian people. But obviously, that's not what this 2022 budget seeks to do. So that is why we are going to organize and make sure that our voices are heard. And indeed, we convey the suffering of the masses of the people so they can hear.
All right, so it's fine for you to criticize the E-levy and the other things that's in the budget, but it's also helpful that when you criticize, you indicate how differently you'd want government to approach these things. So are you putting any proposals, counter proposals on the table?
Sure. Consistently, we've not just been criticizing governments, but we've been preferring alternative ideas, and it looks as if they fall on deaf ears. One of the things that we have pushed consistently is that we would have wished for government to pay more attention to production rather than taxation. And indeed, this sounds familiar because the current Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, had said this in the run-off to 2016 election, that it was a lazy approach to engage in taxation, and that continuous taxation will actually stifle growth. And when there's no growth, there's no revenue generation. And indeed, when there's no revenue generation, you'll be forced to tax again. He then says that this is an engagement in a cyclical downward spiral. So we had hoped that, and indeed we put forward ideas that we should focus on production. And if you permit me with a few minutes, I could run through some of the ideas we push forward. We have said production or manufacturing is the basis of any economy apart from agriculture. So you take the produce that you're producing from agriculture, there's raw materials, and then you add value to them. That is what will help in generating revenue internally. So any government that is really serious about transforming the life of the economy would actually pay more attention to production. But this presupposes that you have to pay attention to your power generation capacity. As it stands, Ghana is having quite a substantial amount of generation capacity for energy, but most of it is run on light crude oil, which is relatively expensive. So we have the generation capacity, but we're not firing on all cylinders. We have said it would make more sense to invest in sustainable energy sources, greener energy sources, and you're looking at waste to energy and other technologies that are abundant in the world today. We have said that infrastructure is one other key place or key factor in developing or growing your economy. But then again, development in infrastructure is not an accident. It has to be carefully and purposefully planned. In that, if you look at, for instance, our road sector, roads are not built for the comfort of the citizens. That is not the first major primary objective of roads. Roads are supposed to connect your industries to your markets. So then a typical example would be the cocoa roads. These connect the cocoa growing communities to the market centers, and it aids in the fast movement of cocoa produce for export and trade. Now, this generates revenue. So you find out that in the shortest possible time, cocoa roads are able to pay for themselves and actually support the building of other roads nationwide. This is how development is supposed to be planned with infrastructure. Again, you're looking at your skilled labor, because if you're going to go into production or industrialization, you need a skilled labor. But our current educational system is not focusing on manufacturing or industry. Right. We raise people I like to call administrators, who go into white-collar jobs, sit behind computers and key in figures, which is not really generating any revenue. We should have looked at the development of science and technology or technical skills. This is what actually goes to drive industrialization. But our educational system is not paying attention to this.
No, so for all the things that you talk about, it requires funding and resources. So government believes that unless we've been able to widen the tax net to get a broad base of taxes, we are unable to do a lot of these things. And that's why they're talking about this E-levy, which they say touches virtually everybody else. So my question is, what are your proposals or counter proposals to ensure that we have a tax that is able to bring in or cover as many people as possible?
All right. So I don't think the issue is with paying off taxes, because if you look consistently, we've even though they're outrageous, we still end up paying. But the issue now is on trust. Ghanaians do not trust this current administration, indeed successive administrations, with handling the public purse. In that we've seen how much we've paid contributing to the tax and development issues, but we don't see any return for the money or value for the money. And that is why most Ghanaians are raising issues. Because Ghanaians, I don't believe Ghanaians would have a problem sacrificing a little bit more if it were going to translate into fiscal tangible results. To generate more revenue, if you look at the Auditor General's report, it's shown that we've lost some 12 billion Ghanaian cedis. That's about some $2 billion US dollars through corrupt practices. And I don't even like to use the word corrupt. This is open thievery, stealing, and that is one of the main drains of our revenue. So it's not that we're not getting enough tax revenue, it is that there's no accountability and most of those monies are stolen. So if we could actually check corruption, we would have some $2 billion US dollars to support some of these projects you're talking about.
Which is like twice the 6.9 billion cedis that government is looking to raise from the E-levy. Let me put that question to Collins. Now, so you've heard Niayu Opari who's saying that if government will do a lot more, or governments will do a lot more to tackle corruption, we probably do not need the 6.9 billion cedis we're seeking to raise from Momo tax.
I'm saying, Israel, I wish you'd have made me land on my point. I was going to throw in one more thing you can now shift to our honourable members of parliament. All
right, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So one other thing is, if you look at, it's surprising when Honourable Sam George, and this is not a personal attack on him, but it's interesting to find out how the opposition tries to play this as if it's just an MPP thing. No, if indeed they believe they want to do better for Ghanaians, if you look at the excesses that they are taking home in luxury spending and emoluments, you find out that it's actually a bigger drain on the economy. And I'm talking about Article 71 office holders. The benefits and the luxuries that they are taking is actually a very, very huge drain on our limited resources or our national coffers. So indeed, I was expecting that if they really want to prove that they stand with the people or they sympathize with the masses of the Ghanaian people, they would have made certain sacrifices on certain benefits or allowances they are taking, which we believe are wasteful. For instance, a member of parliament will be taking what we've come to call a kilometric allowance, that for every journey that they pay, with taxpayers' monies that we've bought V8 for them and fueled those cars for them, they take kilometric allowances. And that's about 3.5 cedis per every kilometer traveled. This is extortion. So indeed, if they want to show that they really sympathize with the Ghanaian people, some of these things have to be let's go. I mean, you have all the luxuries you're taking. You don't pay tax on most of your things. Accommodation is provided for you. I mean, people are taking belt hook allowances and button allowances. These are useless expenditure, which is straining or burdening the national coffers. So indeed, prove your words. If you think you really sympathize with the people, and you want to show that you really do, some of these benefits and allowances have to be sacrificed by members of parliament, or indeed all Article 71 holders. Thank you.
All right, so I'll come to you, Collins. So he makes the point that, if government to check corruption, government probably would not need the 6.9 billion cedis is seeking to raise from Momo tax.
Well, first of all, I don't get belt hook allowance. I don't know whether my good friend George does. I don't get it.
I'll give him an opportunity to respond to that as well.
But I agree with him perfectly on the issue of corruption. I've looked at the Auditor General's report, and I was happy when you used the word successive governments. I mean, if you look at the Auditor General's report, every government, every year, there are issues that are raised. But the point I always make is that democracy without checks and balances is the worst form of military rule. Once you don't put in checks and balances, then there's an issue. The problem is that we watch Public Accounts Committee sessions every day. How many people have been charged and punished for all these issues that comes up? That has always been my issue. Successive governments, including mine, we should be bold enough to ensure that people who are found culpable for misapplying public funds are punished. Once you don't punish them, it gives impetus, it gives some kind of energy to other persons to do the same. So I agree with my brother perfectly.
So why is it that, Collins, so why is it that the government you belong to or the party you belong to is not charging the people?
I'm saying that I don't want it to be an MPP NDC matter. The point he raised was a very national issue.
I agree, but your party is in government right now, so I can ask you.
And as I was speaking, I did say that successive government, including mine, we come to Public Accounts Committee, we listen to all the issues that come up. Unfortunately, of course, Public Accounts Committee or Parliament does not have the power to prosecute. And when their recommendations are given out to, when they are done with their job, I expect the next responsible authority to take it up and punish people. Once you don't punish, every year, my brother will be here to be discussing the same issue. Once you don't punish them, it becomes like it's normal. People will do the same. So I agree with him perfectly.
So how do you feel, Collins, that the one Auditor General who sought to do that apparently had a running with government?
Well, that is a different discussion if you want us to go into that. That's a different discussion altogether. And I don't have the entire details of why we have an issue with the government. But I believe that everything that happened and governments on several occasions have given reasons for what happened. I mean, it was time for him to go on retirement. The laws allowed him to move on retirement. Government took a decision. I think we can have a separate discussion about that.
All right.
What is important?
Yeah.
And even this current Auditor General, I'm sure my brother Niai was quoting from the current Auditor General's report, which was conducted by this current Auditor General. So it doesn't matter who was there or who was not there. What is important is for the Auditor General to do his job as stipulated by law. That's all.
All right, so let me come to Sam George. So the issue about kilometric allowance, Niai is making the point that this kilometric allowance, it's a rip-off, and that if you are actually committed to ensuring that we protect the public purse, probably the MPs should be talking about amending or reviewing the benefits that come to you, the emoluments that come to you as MPs.
Okay, first and foremost, I would expect that, and I take it in good faith. He premised it by saying it wasn't a personal attack, so it's something about all MPs. I think I'll use this opportunity to help my brother Niai, my grandbrother, so that he doesn't repeat these untruths anywhere, because it would be very embarrassing. He's a national spokesperson for the Economic Freedom League, Fighters League. It is incorrect. It is a lie. Let's just call it. It's a lie that MPs get cars bought for them and fuel for them. No MP receives fuel for their cars near E. That's the first point. That's a lie he told, and never repeat it anywhere again. No MP gets fuel for their cars. Don't confuse MPs with members of the executive or with members of the judiciary. And people always do this when they are talking about the three arms of government. They focus on Parliament. Ministers may get fuel. MPs don't get fuel. Now you talk about kilometric allowance. How much I get when Parliament is rising, not every time I move. Parliament rises 3 times in a year. So when he says that every time you move your car, you get kilometric allowance, that's a lie again. Now when the kilometric allowance, when I move, for example, when I went to Parliament in 2017, my allowance from Accra to Pram Pram, as calculated, to take me and bring me back, was 168 Ghana cedis. So is that what is draining the public purse? 168 Ghana cedis. There was a review. And from 2020, when we rose recently, in August thereabout, what I got to Pram Pram was 585 Ghana cedis. So after working for 16 weeks And I was going back to Pram Pram. And it did not take into consideration how many times I had to go to the constituency. Every time I went to the constituency, within the 16 weeks, I got no allowance. When Parliament is rising, you get one allowance. I got 85 Ghana cedis. Someone like Zaneto, whose constituency is where Parliament is, gets about 120 Ghana cedis. So is that what Nia is saying is the drain on the public purse? I mean, let's get serious if we want to talk. It's easy to attack MPs. And again, Nia, let's be clear. Let's be clear. That. I don't get free accommodation. I pay rent for the house I'm living in. Okay? And I'm supposed to, as everybody knows, every public service worker, be you a messenger or a chief director, you get a percentage of your annual salary if you don't stay in a government bungalow. Okay, it's a range, I think it's about 10% or 20% of your gross pay. That is what you get as a rent allowance. Everybody gets a rent allowance. It is not an MP's thing. It's a public service thing, not just for those at the top, but everybody in there. So you see, there's a lot of misconception, a lot of untruths about so-called perks and benefits. I don't fix my salary, okay? But you see, you make a solid point and say that you're looking to raise 6.97 billion from an E-levy. But wastage in the public Auditor General's report points to 12.8 billion. That 12.8 billion didn't come from Parliament. It didn't come from us. Like you said, it's plain thievery. In 2016, that same Auditor General's report said that there was less than $1 billion in public wastage. Even that, I still think we did bad. 780 million, it actually said. And at the last NDC administration, John Mahama was accused of stealing and everything. 780 million, less than $1 billion. Under Akufo-Addo, in 4 years, we moved from 780 million in public wastage or proceeds from corruption to 12.8 billion. That's where the target should be. Again, we should be targeting the kinds of tax waivers we give. Because Israel, I still don't understand the tax waiver business. And we've been talking about this.
Well, the tax waiver or tax exemption, which you've also made reference to the fact that there's the double taxation
Yes.
treaties that we get
absolutely.
Into. And so, yes.
No, but Israel,
it brings in
Israel,
exemption.
No. I'm a road contractor in Ghana. And there's a foreign road contractor. You give me 100 kilometers of cocoa roads to construct, and you give a foreigner 100 kilometers of cocoa roads to construct here in Ghana. I, as a contractor, go abroad to go and buy the graders and the bitumen machines and everything because we don't produce them here. So I buy from the same market as the foreigner who is buying there. You give the foreigner a tax exemption on the equipment he's bringing in. And me, the Ghanaian contractor who is constructing the same road with him, when I bring it in, I must pay duty because I'm a Ghanaian. What is the double taxation here?
Okay.
You get it? So
that is why you have the exemptions.
The
exemptions bill, fortunately, it's coming before Parliament. It's before Parliament. It's something that you, MP, should look at and quickly pass.
I mean, I would support the exemptions bill, but let me state emphatically that I am not against the budget. Because, remember, I said there are 3 stages. The budget, we will do the discussion, the debate on the policy, which starts on Tuesday, tomorrow to Friday. Then we'll break into committees to do the estimates and come and debate the estimates before approval of appropriation. Let me state for the records. I, Sam George, I'm not against the 2022 budget. I can't be against the budget because the workers of Ghana, some of whom are my constituents, be they policemen, teachers, lawyers, who are on the public payroll, have their salaries in that budget. So I can't be against the budget in its entirety. I'm against the E-levy policy, which I would fight. I would fight it at a committee level and speak on the floor of the House against it, and I would fight against appropriation. My leadership has indicated that they would not support it. If that E-levy on mobile money transactions and on the face value of business transactions is not taken out of appropriations, me, Sam George, irrespective of whichever way my party leadership will want to go, will vote against the appropriations bill. Because I will not approve appropriation that introduces an E-levy. Until that revenue line is taken out, I cannot support
whether that E-levy is reviewed and fine-tuned to make it more acceptable.
If the E-levy includes a taxation of any amount, even if it is 0.01, on the value of transaction, on every transaction, it's a different thing if we're talking about charges and other things. But if it is on the value of the transaction, I'm being very clear. If it is a charge, even if it's 0.01% in addition on the charge of the value, not on the service charge, but on the value of transaction, I would oppose the appropriations bill. If it is on the value of bank transfers, not on the service charge, I would oppose it as well. And on inward remittances again, if there is no considerable threshold that is placed on that kind of taxation, again, because you cannot tell me that someone sending $100, they've called you, you are brushing teeth of horses in London to make a living. And then they call you that your mother is sick and they need to buy medicine, she's dying. And you are sending €100 or £100. And the government of Ghana thinks that they must take 1.75 on that money to buy medicine, €100 or $100. It makes no sense. And even when you're talking about the big ticket items, when you're looking at FDIs, people transferring monies into Ghana to build the industries that we need. I mean, there must be a thinking around this. So if that thinking is not clear, I cannot append my signature or approve or vote. I will call for a vote by division. Okay. And vote against the appropriation, because appropriation is where you have all of the bill, the appropriations bill. We will take a stand against it. Collins Adomako Mensah. Now, the finance minister has indicated that they're seeking to win over or win the cooperation of the minority. How do you intend to go about this when Sam George has taken such a categorical stance?
Well, I thank Sam George for giving us a heads up. Now we know his position, and so we will try harder to convince Sam George to help us push this through. But this thing happens all the time, and Sam George made it very clear. You'll be surprised that normally at the committee level, you see even members of parliament from the government side, opposing strongly some aspects of what the government has presented. And that is what we do. The idea is to brainstorm, to fine-tune it, to use your word, to fine-tune it to ensure that all Ghanaians accept this. Now, the point is that I'm happy Sam George says he supports the 2022 bill. Ghana has to move on. Government has to rake in some revenue to ensure that the expenditure line that it has stated is taken care of. I'm happy he says he supports it. His problem is that, and the problem with some members of the NDC, is that the method we are using to bring in some revenue, they have an issue with it. As you said, we'll brainstorm with them. Government has a duty and a responsibility to continue to explain to them the reason for this particular transaction. I have told you that personally, I have some little issues with the policy. But at the committee level, I'll make my stance very clear on that. And I hope that government will listen to all of us and listen to divergent views so that we fine-tune it and then we move forward. We have to really move forward as a country. And government's idea of ensuring that there is equitable distribution or equitable responsibility in terms of tax obligation is something that I support here.
All right, now, Collins, I want to put this to you. So for me, when I look at the E-levy, one of the issues I have is we're saying that we're going to widen the tax net. Widening the tax net means that we're bringing in other people who should be paying tax but don't pay tax. But what this E-levy tries to do is to add to the burden of people who are already paying direct taxes. So I pay taxes. My taxes are withdrawn from my salary at source. So yes, I'm a contributor to national development and the payment of taxes. And yet this E-levy will impose a further burden on me, as well as people who also don't pay taxes. Don't you think we should find a way of discriminating? Otherwise, let's scrap the direct taxes entirely and everybody else pays E-levy.
This E-levy is discriminatory. If you look at the exemptions...
It's not discriminatory for people who are paying direct taxes already. That's the point I'm making. So yes, I'm happy to pay taxes. But if I'm paying taxes and there's a widening of the tax net and you include me in that widening, that's problematic, don't you think?
Well, you have a point, but I believe the proposal said anything below 100 cedis in a day, you are exempt from paying the tax. Well,
I would spend more than 100.
Of course, you are Israelite. You have to spend more than 100.
And it's not just me. It's not just me. Everybody. So government says that for people who earn 3,000 cedis and below, or who are moving 3,000 cedis and below. It doesn't quite work out that way anyway. The point I'm just making is that I think there has to be some...
The point about that is that when you do 100 cedis a day, you are exempt. So the calculation is that if you do 100 cedis every day in a month, that's 3,000. And so that is the whole idea about the 3,000 is exempt.
The point I'm just making is that I think it's something that government has to really look at. And I'm hoping that you, being a member of the majority, would also table this when it comes up. Because people who are already paying taxes shouldn't be made to bear this E-levy as well. Otherwise, let's scrap the direct taxes. Let's all pay E-levy.
What I'm excited about is that since the announcement, if you check on the airwaves, social media, a lot more people are bringing alternative solutions, which is what is important to me. Right. I get people, and Sandro today has made some suggestions, which is what the whole idea of democracy is about. And I'm sure as we move into the debates and groups into our committees, all these issues and alternatives are going to come up. Government, as I said, is open to suggestions. And I'm sure at that particular stage, you might never know, other more innovative ways of implementing this E-levy will come up.
All right. All right. Okay, so I'd want to take your final thoughts on it, on this conversation, and also ask you, there are a number of things that have come up in the budget. One of them being a common platform for the collection of property taxes at the district assembly level. What do you make of that too? Hello, Collins. All right, it appears we probably may have lost Collins on that line. But Nia, I'll take your take on that as well, on the other issues that have come up in the budget, the collection of property taxes at the central level, or centralizing the collection of property taxes so that the central government is going to have is going to share that, because they're putting in place a mechanism for the collection to be done, and so they're going to take a bit of that. What do you make of that as well?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'd just like to touch on this and respond to Honorable Sam George quickly.
All right.
Before I made my submissions to him, I had said that it was not a personal attack whatsoever.
He indicated that.
Yes, but then for him to come and then state categorically that I lied, that is quite unfortunate. And
okay, he says the point you made.
No. So hold on. No, I get you. I followed the conversation. I heard him say, he said it emphatically that I lied, and then he said it twice that I'd lied concerning the kilometric allowance and some other things. And that word was a bit too strong, I think. You could have said I probably misquoted, but you cannot deny that certain Article 71 holders are being paid kilometric allowances.
He says when you talk about MPs.
You might claim you're not. Say again?
He says when you talk about MPs, that's where he has a problem with it.
But I didn't limit it to MPs. I had actually said that it goes to Article 71 holders. So it might not necessarily cover everyone in that bracket, but certain people in there are actually benefiting from those. So you cannot state that I'm telling a lie or that I'm a liar. Let's get serious. This is not a play.
Okay.
No one is crying, respectfully. But again, you see, he sought to say that he only takes some 500 Ghana cedis when Parliament is rising, and that's what is costing a drain on the public purse. Again, respectfully, Sam George, if you are taking 500, you're not the only person. We have some 275 members of Parliament. So if each of them is taking that comes to a total of about some 135,000 Ghana cedis. And if by going by what you said, that happens 3 times in a year, that means you're looking at close to 400,000 Ghana cedis. Now, if you didn't know, that can actually put up 2 6-unit classroom blocks.
That's not true.
And currently, Ghana is in deficit of some 4,000 classroom units. So if you and your other colleagues are taking such amounts 3 times a year, which is coming to about 400,000.
Okay, so he's making the point that it can build only 1, not 2.
Whichever, but then still, you could still build 1.
All right.
Still, you cannot dismiss it that way. But
go back to their constituencies.
But then back to the issues of the property rate and all of that. Again, collecting taxes is not really a bad thing. It goes to aid in development.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a good thing. But I am saying Ghanaians do not trust the current political establishment we have, which is made up of the NDC and the MPP. Ghanaians do not trust them because we see how we, the ordinary Ghanaians, are making sacrifices to contribute to the national development.
Yeah.
But those we've elected to stand in place for us in Parliament or to represent us in government are actually living lavishly. And they don't seem to be carrying the brunt of the issues you are dealing with. So it's very difficult to go back to the Ghanaian people and tell them, you know what, we need you to pay some more taxes. The question then will be, what are you doing with those taxes?
Yeah.
So then if they can, it's about public trust. If they can go back to winning public trust, and this will only happen if there's accountability and there's transparency.
All right.
If they can stand with integrity and show Ghanaians that indeed we are willing to stand with you by making certain sacrifices ourselves and making sure that we put the taxes that are collected to judicious use, then Ghanaians can begin to trust them, and we may be willing to put up with some of these exorbitant taxes they're throwing.
All right. Thank you very much, Niai, who is with the Economic Freedom Fighters League, the national spokesperson. We also had joining us for the conversation, Collins Adumako Mensah, who is the MP for Efija Kwabre North. We lost him on the line, but I'll come to you, Sam George, MP for Ningo Pram, for your concluding thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, and with all due deference to my brother Ni, if he felt that the word lie was too strong, well, apologies to him. I felt that if something is not true, it's a lie. But that's fine. I mean, it's fair and square. We can have a conversation on what he thinks are the largesse and luxuries that he talks about.
Which is really the
and I mean, we can always have
Article 71 of
yes,
his holders
and I'm very comfortable with us having that conversation. I always maintain that, look, if MPs are not burdened with certain responsibilities, okay, which you shouldn't have them having to deal with, that their colleagues don't deal with in other jurisdictions, maybe we can have some conversations.
Which
but like
burdens they take on themselves?
Oh, well, if you are not bringing bills for second marriages and third marriages and all kinds of things to an MP, it's easier to make all kinds of claims. Look, you need to see the lives of MPs after they leave office. But like I said, that's a different conversation. On the issue of the property tax thing, I agree. Look, and nobody who has his head properly screwed on would say that taxation is a bad thing. But it's the manner in which it is done. Look, property taxes are a major IGF source for district assemblies.
Yeah.
Taking it away from the district assemblies and trying to centralize it in Accra. And not, when you're centralizing it in Accra, you're putting it in the hands of a private player to get a percentage of revenue. And I hear it is 40, 30, 30. A private company is going to be the one to do the property taxing. They will take 40%. Then central government will take 30%. And then the district assembly will take 30%. I mean, why don't we empower the district assemblies to, on their own, do this collection? You're talking about
but they're supposed
creation.
to do that now. I mean, they don't need anybody to tell them.
They are doing it. But you see, this is an overburdening central government dipping his hands into the kitties of the local assemblies. What we need to do is rather set benchmarks, KPIs, for district assemblies, meet this target, or you, the head of the district, who is the district chief executive, will be fired. Because we want you to raise this revenue. And we are talking about job creation. Allow the district assemblies employ this evaluators, their own people at the local assemblies to go out there, go after the houses and do the taxation of these houses. Because mind you, there are certain funds that the district assemblies qualify for on the basis of their revenue collection, which is the DPAT thing, which is foreign funding, which comes to support them. The Germans are saying that, look, if you go ahead, and the Germans provide a lot of funding for DPAT, they are saying that, look, if this becomes central government, we're going to pull out of it. Okay. We're going to lose that funding. Secondly, even once your IGFs don't meet a certain threshold, you don't qualify for DPAT. So this whole concept of centralizing what we should decentralize, for me, is my problem. Yeah. So yes, property taxes, by all means, we must expand the net. We should be able to collect the property taxes better, but to centralize it, it is just an opportunity for create, loot, and share. Somebody is going to sit somewhere in Accra and have a cut in whatever is being generated, because if that person is sitting in Accra, he can't determine what is going on in Ngo Pram Pram. He won't have a share in that one. But to bring everything to Accra, then one person is going to sit down and look into the kitty. Who is the private entity that is going to get 40% of all revenues?
It's something worth looking into.
Absolutely.
Right.
So these are the issues we're raising. And like Collins said to you, we were in Ho, for the post-budget workshop. I was there. And I mean, even in Parliament, I've engaged them. And so when people think that, people shouldn't think that the NDC is just out to, against it. He will tell you. And even with the finance ministry, deputy ministers and the minister himself, I have made certain suggestions to them and said, look, if we do it this way, it would help the country. Yeah. It will help the ordinary people. Because this is not about me or them. It's about the people we serve.
All right. Thank you very much, Sam George. Sam George is MP for Ningo from Pram. You're still on the AM show. We have more coming up. Don't go away.